right. Hi, David. Hi, Asa. Great to see you both again for our next podcast. So the topic today is, what common mistakes do we see that business make when starting with lead gen, and how can they avoid them? So Asa, we might jump to you first.
I think it starts with the lack of clear target audience to start with. Most of the companies or the people that I've noticed fail with the lead generation, or they fail to understand the concept of lead generation, is they haven't done really good market research of their services, and they just come up with an ideal prospect that they want to hunt via lead generation, which most of the time doesn't really work. So first thing, I think first and the foremost thing is the lack of understanding of the clear target audience, which can be easily overcome by a very simple thing. You just go after your direct competitors and study their clientele, what market trends are, and it is going to basically help you understand where you can position your service and to whom you can go after, which is going to save you a lot of time. This is one of the biggest mistake I've seen people making. Then the second thing, having a very generic message or a very generic approach, where you might want to target a set of different industries with a very generic message in terms of selling your all of your services in one message, because a lot of people are doing lead gen nowadays in-house and outsource. Almost everybody is getting hundreds of emails per month, and everybody's pitching companies some kind of services. It doesn't mean the lead gen doesn't work. It means you have to be very creative with your bandwidth that you have, time that you are going to get on the internet. You have to utilize it to the best of your capabilities. So if you can have a very directed campaign, a very clear message to the right audience, I think that's the key.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's just bouncing off that idea that people receive a lot of cold messages. It's one reason a lot of people say to us, well, lead generation doesn't work because I receive a lot of messages and I just ignore all of them. And I think that is a mistake to make when starting with lead generation, is just because you've received bad inbound inquiries doesn't mean that all lead generation fails. It just means that the right people need to hear the right message and open the right conversation. And in the cases where you're receiving a lot of spammy messages, is you're not the right person and you're not getting the right message. And so therefore it feels like this stuff doesn't work. So you're right, just getting the market message match right is pretty critical, because it does work, right? We see it working all the
And
time.
it kind of gives you, it's a blessing in disguise, because if your competitors or everybody is doing it the wrong way, and if you are doing it the right way, you'll get the spotlight. So it kind of works in your favor if you know what you are doing. If somebody is receiving 10 emails a day and 9 of them are really generic and bad, and if your message is accurate and you know what you're talking about and what the prospect needs to hear, it is automatically going to win the trust, and you're gonna be ahead of your competition right away.
Yeah, great. How about you, David? Do you have
Yeah,
comments
there's
to add?
there are a number of points. Asal's absolutely right. What we've seen before is the vertical or the granularity in terms of focus. That's absolutely right. On the messaging side, again, I would agree. I would say, again, we've seen a lot of this. There's especially when we're having initial conversations with clients, is they lead to, let me tell you about my product and service and how wonderful it is. And we're like, yeah, okay, that's great, but that's not the message that needs to be sent out. It's a little bit about, what problems are you going to be fixing out there for people? What problems do people have? What's kind of the benefits that you can provide around that? So in the nicest possible way, what we say to some, especially, anyone that's got a technical solution in any way, shape, or form, sometimes technically they are fantastic, but a lot of customers are sitting there going, yeah, well, so what? But what's it going to do for me? How's it going to help my business and everything else? So that messaging piece, I think you're absolutely right. It just needs to be focused more on the customer rather on themselves. And then what I would probably say after that would be what a lot of clients need to be doing is around measuring their effectiveness, i.e., so when their appointments are being booked, what is the close rate? how are things progressing? And what's important here is, is to close the loop. We need, to provide the feedback, or we're finding this conversation with this particular level of person is gaining real traction. If that's fed back, or we're in the loop of that, which is great, we can kind of build off of that. So I think what that is around clients understanding, what their sales process progression looks like, things like close rate. On average, how long does it take a deal to progress? But work with us a lot more in terms of providing that feedback so we can refine things as we move forward. So I'd probably say, between us, they're the key common mistakes. There are others, of course, that we face, but I would say they're the kind of the key ones that we deal with on a regular basis. Yeah.
Yeah, and on that point around knowing your numbers, the flip side of saying or thinking lead generation never works is the naive assumption that this will work and you better get me results immediately, otherwise you're not doing your job properly. Like that's the attitude that can come to us. Like if it's not working straight away,
Yeah.
this process is broken. And I think also just kind of baking into it that this process, we test so many variables around data and script and cadence to get results that it does work, but sometimes some time needs to go into the
I think
testing.
that's a good point, Jenna. One of the reasons people want lead generation, they're going, look, either they don't have the time or they can't be consistent in terms of about that. So what we're saying is, if you want to build a manageable, consistent pipeline of opportunities, you've got to spend time doing it. And to your point, it's not that no one's got a magic wand and it's going to just, in a month or a week, it all suddenly changes. It's not like that. But you're right. There's that. I think the important thing people need to see is they're seeing that there's progress. There's more opportunities in the pipeline. There's more conversations they're having, and they feel like they're progressing. And if a client says no, we understand why they're saying no, which I think is important because you can learn from them now.
Yeah, definitely. So measuring helps you understand your progress, making sure you're saying the right thing to the right people,
Absolutely. Yeah.
being willing to test and take time. These sound like they're kind of the classical things.
I would
Yeah.
like to add, Jen, is lacking or kind of depending on just one platform for lead gen, IT mistake when it comes to lead generation. For example, if you are only use email to generate leads, it can work most of the times, but if you are just relying on one platform and if
Yeah, one
something goes wrong with
channel,
your
isn't it? That's all. Yeah,
domains or
yeah. I
Google
think
has changed its algorithm, or maybe the industry that you're targeting, people are not really active on the emails, it is going to have a huge impact on the results right away.
yeah,
So it's
I think you're
always
right.
better to be more, different
It's
platforms for the outreach who
I
can
suppose
complement each other.
what it boils down to, isn't it, is giving people that we want to target the choice of which channel they want to communicate with, whether it's LinkedIn,
Yeah.
whether it's email, whatever it is giving them the choice rather than dictating what it is. It's going to be only email or whatever it is. But yeah, it's a good point. It is a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think to Assel's point is actually doing all of them that if you can, email and LinkedIn, and content, because the more strands you have, the more opportunity they have to interact with each other. So an email will lead to somebody looking at you on LinkedIn, a LinkedIn message will lead to someone looking at your website. These
And
things
then
all
helps,
interact with each other.
and it definitely helps, gaining some trust online, because again, if 10 other companies are doing outreach, you have to stand out and you have to build your brand credibility online. And with the help of content, LinkedIn and email, you kind of does that.
Fantastic. It feels like we could talk on and on and on. Do you guys have any closing points on common mistakes and how to avoid them?
No, I would say we've covered I think it's the old 80-20 rule, isn't it, here, what we're kind of talking about. So the ones that we're focusing on are the primary ones. The good news is, yes, they're common mistakes, but there are ways of combating them and alleviating them and make sure that they don't happen, or less so, but then people can start to get, the results that they're looking for.
Thank you, David and Asil, for your time today. I think that's super
Thank you, Ben.
valuable sharing. See you in the next episode.
Great stuff. Thank you.
Yeah.